May the 14th, 2021. Here's what we was talking about on Ring IQ's Hangout.
2 days ago, I didn't even know Ben Davison was in the corner. But apparently he was. When Mark Tibbs is the chief second. Nobody stops the fight before the chief second, bro.
But, yeah, so I had to pull it.
It's not going to be a popular video, but here's why a lot of people are making up a lot of noise right now. IFL TV might have to do a little to gain the boxing fans' trust. A lot of us are saying this. Here's some of the reasons right now. Now, I've personally noticed the Tyson Fury bias over Anthony Joshua in the last few years. I've noticed it, and a few people on my channel have noticed it. They've almost got all of Tyson Fury's family and anyone close to Tyson Fury, anyone who knows Tyson Fury. And Gareth A. Davis is one of his biggest cheerleaders. Gareth Davis was over the top in his criticisms of Joshua post-fight, Kubrat Pulev. And check some of the replies in the comment section. And look, it's IFL's decision who they let sponsor them. You know, with power comes responsibility. When you have so much access to all the boxers, the top promoters and stuff like that, there is a level of neutrality and transparency expected from you. So with Joshua and Fury imminent in Saudi Arabia, August the 14th, they surely have to be conscious of how it looks if they allow too much Tyson Fury bias with his family and all these boxers and celebrities, B-C-list celebrities, singing his praises. IFL is sponsored by MTK. This is a well-known fact. And if they're going to do damage control for Billy allegedly quitting, well, in my opinion, definitely quitting, how come they didn't protect Anthony Joshua or Daniel Dubois the same way? This is all the videos on IFL, or some of them, that said Anthony Joshua quit against Andy Ruiz. Here's a list of the videos responding to Daniel Dubois quitting against Joe Joyce. How come they're not pulling these videos off about AJ and Daniel? The young lady who runs one of the channels has made a point to tell us that Billy didn't quit. I haven't seen her do that for no other fighters though in similar situations. Her Mark Tibbs video post-fight has been withdrawn from YouTube. And we've seen how pally she is with Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders.
Can people stop talking about Triple D now? You know, you don't... Fighters go out on that. You get in that ring. People know what it's like to walk in that ring. Get carried out the ring, brother. Get carried out the ring. You know, it's not all give, knocking people unconscious and then your eye goes and then you want to get out.
Now, everybody was talking about how classy Daniel was, that he didn't throw some shots back at Billy after Billy threw him under the bus. Well, was it classy or was it just a little suspect and a little too pacifist in hindsight? Because Tyson Fury was the first one to come out saying this is a heart game. He was throwing a shot at Daniel, bigging up Joe Joyce. Now, while I can understand, he's not going to say, well, I wish I could fight Billy in the ring, because Billy's a middleweight, a super middleweight. But he was all up to fight Dillian. I want to prove to Dillian that I'm not a quitter. But he doesn't want no smoke with Tyson Fury. So Tyson Fury can throw you under the bus. But when Dillian says something, you got this big problem. I wonder why. I mean, Dillian was just responding to how Daniel reacted to Dillian losing to Povetkin. Dillian and Frank Warren, they had a lot to say when Dillian lost.
Daniel Dubois obviously suffered an orbital fracture.
Did he?
Yeah.
I haven't seen any scans or anything. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's what the reports are, that he's suffered nerve damage and an orbital fracture.
A report from what?
Well, that's what I've read. The same sources we get probably 99% of our information from, Edward.
No, I think most people would post some kind of X-ray. I'm not a doctor, but it didn't look. It looked like eye swelling to me, not necessarily a fracture. But what do I know? But we'll see. I mean, he's just been very poorly brought through, Dubois. You know, he's never boxed above English level, title level. That's the level that he's boxed at, right? And then you step to a guy who is definitely top 15 in the world, in Joe Joyce, and he just wasn't ready for it. I think Sam Jones was 100% right, which was he hasn't had the middle fight, you know, and he wasn't ready for Joe Joyce. He wasn't good enough. He didn't have the heart. He didn't have the ability to beat Joe Joyce.
So Eddie's sticking the boot into Frank more than Daniel. Let's face it, right? He's saying he hasn't maneuvered him right. He wants to see evidence like Teddy Atlas. if the injuries were real, you know. And then he said...
He didn't have the heart. He didn't have the ability to beat Joe Joyce.
And within seconds, here's what he said.
I think it's very difficult to, you know, as a non-fighter, to start saying he quit, he done this, he done that. You have to really listen to the fighters.
You see, this is one-on-one, passive-aggressive verbal attack. First, he questioned the injuries because he didn't see no medical reports. And then when Coogan said, oh, well, that's what they're saying from credible outlets, Eddie said, yeah, well, what do I know? Then he said, Dubois didn't have the ability, then he didn't have no heart. And then within seconds he said, but, you know, it's not right for us non-boxing people to say he quit. So he's throwing the disses in there, then taking them back, putting the suggestion in your head that he wasn't injured, but then again, he might have been. You know, he hasn't got no heart, but then again, you can't call him a quitter. And this is another video that IFL had on there, suggesting that Daniel quit, that the injuries weren't real. I guarantee you, IFL would have took this down if Eddie was talking about Tyson Fury or Billy Joe Saunders. Now, I've got to watch how I do this video, watch what I use, and watch what I say. But I've been told firsthand, and this is a while back before certain YouTube channels were as big as they are now. I've been told they used to almost threaten and bully a lot of other people who may go to the weigh-in or a press conference, maybe with just a mobile phone or a camera, or maybe trying to get a more professional setup going. They used to threaten them almost not to go to talk to that person and not to try to interview that person. Are you going to share the pie? Asked Derek Chisora. I got bills to pay, is what the man from the media said. And was very strong, standing against Derek, the way he was talking. And that's fair enough. If he's beat out the competition and he's the top guy in the United Kingdom, well, that's a spot he deserves. But now you have it. With power comes responsibility. The lady involved in this scandal, last year, during the pandemic, she was talking about what the promoters owed them and all they did for everybody. Had an attitude of entitlement, if you ask me. Now, there are 3 prominent YouTube channels who've took these videos down with Mark Tibbs saying what went down post-fight. Coogan has now come out and said the reason why the Mark Tibbs video was removed is because I was respectfully asked to remove the interview by Mark Tibbs himself. Thank you. Well, that's a bit of a coincidence that the other 2 went down. Maybe he asked all 3 outlets to remove the video. The question is then, was why put up a video with Ben Davidson in there now in an attempt to change the narrative? Because that's what it sounds like. Now, the interview is in Scotland. Ben Davidson is with Josh Taylor. They've tried to set up the interview like it's about Josh Taylor and Ramirez, but the interviewer's opening bars are all set up to set the narrative.
You were in the corner with Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo. Before we talk about the stopping the fight and stuff, how did you think the fight was going?
He sneaks it in there that you was in the corner, and Ben's nodding his head like, yeah, I was in the corner. There's no mention of Mark Tibbs once in the video. You can't make a video like that and not mention the chief second. But he's talking like it was him and perhaps the guy who carried the spit bucket. They decided to stop the fight. Not Mark Tibbs decided to stop the fight. We. You see, his account is conflicting with what the chief second, Mark Tibbs, said initially.
Yeah, well, listen, we think he's got his eye socket was caved in and he couldn't see. So I didn't get the response I wanted from him. So, you know, tough business is business, and you know, it was frustrating really because I felt that he was growing into it. But yeah, so I had to pull it.
This is the only plausible account of what went down because it's raw, it's real, it's not scripted, it's minutes after Mark Tibbs has just watched his boxer lose the unification fight he was involved in. He was the chief second. He doesn't say we stopped the fight. He said, I pulled it. Not we. There's no Ben Davison, there's no spit bucket boy. I pulled it. You could feel he was dejected because he said, oh, I just thought Billy was getting into it. So he was disappointed. Maybe not so much at Billy, but at the time he had expectations that Billy could have went on to perhaps win the fight. That was a real, non-scripted response. Unlike this amateur thespian performance by Ben Davison and the Scottish dude. And it's interesting. FIGHTHUB have just released a video. Did Billy Joe Saunders quit? Pro fighters and experts react and give their opinion. Roy Jones didn't really judge, but he said, I ain't going to stop. You're going to have to stop me. But he said, not everyone's the same. You know, Edgar Berlanga, I don't know if he was trolling perhaps to bring some attention to himself. He didn't hold back.
Joe Saunders is pussy. He is pussy. You don't go out like that. 8 rounds in front of 73,000 people. You're supposed to get knocked out. You're supposed to die. You're supposed to die because that's what we in there. We gladiators, man. You're not supposed to go in there and quit, man. You know, and he quit tonight.
This video here is a real reflection of how people react. Boxers and people around the game. It's not scripted. It's not choreographed like that nonsense we saw on IFL with Ben Davison and the Scottish guy. It's in the description box. They've got David Benavides. They've got Jose Benavides Sr., Omar Figueroa and his sister, Caleb Plant, Oscar Valdez, and a whole load of other people. Some people are diplomatic. Some people are straight to the point. But they want to change the narrative now and act like there's a dictatorship going on here. No, there's no dictatorship going on here. That's not how we do journalism in this part of the world. Now, I've got no choice but say it's a coincidence because I have no proof, but say that it's got to be a coincidence that Tibbs's Twitter account got hacked a day or so ago. Danny Dubois and Mark Tibbs have split without having one fight together as fighter and coach. Danny's going to train with Shane McGuigan. He postponed an appearance on a podcast at the last minute. His interviews got taken down by 3 channels. Now, Coogan is saying that it was Mark's decision to do so. But why? Why did he do that? What did he say what was so out of line? Why did he do that? Well, he responded just a short while ago.
Hello people, I just want to clarify 1 or 2 things. Ben Davison was not in our training camp.
The first thing he said was Ben Davison was not in the training camp, which means Ben has no authority to stop any fight.
We saw him, he come about in, I believe, the last week of while we was winding down. But I saw him on the morning of the fight in the hotel room.
Mark Tibbs saw Ben Davison on the last week of the training camp when they were winding down the camp and saw him on the day of the fight. They saw him. Ben wasn't working with Billy or Mark. They saw each other. Now, Ben Davison has exposed himself. This is what the interviewer asked him.
So you were in the corner with Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo.
Ben nods his head as to say yes. He didn't actually answer. He had this little sheepish grin on his face as he nodded.
Onto the fight. During the rounds, Billy Joe got injured. I briefed my corner team that Billy's eyes are injured, and I've got a towel for one of them in case I needed it.
I briefed my corner team, which does not include Ben Davison.
As Billy Joe walked towards me, as he walked towards me at the end of the round, I looked directly in his eyes. We had a little bit of dialogue, only a little bit of dialogue, but it was between us. He sits down. As he sits down in the corner, Ben Davison got control and blew down his ear up. I let him have his 20 seconds because I knew what I was about to do on the state of that eye. So as he sat down, I had some more dialogue with Billy Joe, and that's private. And then I turned around and I waved the fight off as Billy Joe's trainer and head coach. It's as simple as that. I can't get any clearer than that. Now, Billy Joe needed looking after, and it was my job to do that. And listen, great fighters have done what Billy Joe Saunders has done and been in that position he's been in, and they come again. Now listen, I don't know what all the fuss is about, so I thought I'd get that off my chest because I keep getting phone calls, emails and whatnot, and that's as plain and simple as it is, and it can be, and that's what happened.
Listen to Ben Davison. This is weird.
And Billy Joe was going into the fight, got caught with a shot. I said, but we're going to have to pull it. That's why he shook his head to say, no.
He's acting like he had something to do with stopping the fight, Ben Davison.
Yeah, the only reason he shook his head was to say, don't pull it. But we had to do what we had to do.
We had to do what we had to do. There is no we. And Billy said no, as to say, I can't continue.
Going off that, I know he was obviously... Some fighters are too brave for their own good, and they need somebody like a Ben Davison in the corner, or other coaches that have done it. We've seen Gary Lockett, Mark was there, we've seen Gary Lockett do it with Liam Williams as well. We've seen loads of good trainers say, listen, come back and fight another day. Do you know what I mean? So it's always good to see a coach pull a fighter, because we know what fighters are like, especially guys like Billy Joe Saunders.
Ring IQ asked me, is Billy Joe Saunders worth that much, that they would go through so much to protect his reputation as a warrior? I don't think it's so much about Billy. I think it's so much about MTK. You know, like, two of their biggest stars are Billy and Tyson Fury, and they're like peas in a pod. And if you notice, they like calling out other boxers who quit. You know, Billy was talking about, you haven't fought a gypsy with heart, pointing to his heart when he was face to face with Canelo. Fury was talking up Billy, you ain't fought a gypsy with heart. Fury put AJ, Daniel Dubois out there. If you quit, you'll quit again, you'll choke. It's a heart game. And we know what Billy said about Daniel Dubois. And it's all about this gypsy warrior spirit, this Irish warrior spirit. Don't quit. And MTK will go to lengths to do damage control, to uphold that image, even though it's not true. Not just from Irish boxers, from fighters of any ethnicity or nationality. They've all got fighters that will quit if enough pressure is applied on them, or if enough pain is being felt. Barry McGuigan warned everybody about this last year, and a lot of us, including me, we laughed at Barry. I've got my reasons why I'm not a Barry McGuigan fan. Nicola Talent, she's been warning us for a long time now, and a lot of people have tried to make her out as some mad woman, but it's not looking good. The signs were there with that golden contract tournament with Tyrone McKenna and the North African fighter, where the North African fighter clearly won. And even O'Hara Davis against Miguel Vasquez, Vasquez clearly won the fight. Even O'Hara Davis said it. But they wanted a final between McKenna and O'Hara Davis. It was a better sell. And it led to both semi-finals having atrocious results, with the wrong boxer winning both times. The leader said to Talk Sport, where he was trying to clean up his image, where they printed out this speech he made as he tried to clean up his act and look like a legit businessman. He said last week it was inferred that he had threatened a reporter. Let me be clear on this point before I address the other allegations. He said he has full respect for journalism. He's worked with journalists and he values their role. Journalists should always be free to do their job, free from any threat or harassment. I have never threatened a reporter or journalist or asked anyone to do that. I have never and never would. Now, I'll have to take his word on that. But it seems to me they have no respect at all for real journalism. I mean, do they think everyone is that stupid? We can't see what is obvious in front of us right now. I mean, look, the media do damage control and cover-ups and all types of propaganda on us, the less suspecting, all the time. But at least try and be clever and discreet with it. This isn't even attempting to be discreet with it. It's just blatant as anything. And to the parties who are complicit, let me just say, if this was football and this was happening at this level here, the equivalent of two clubs, one Canelo and another Billy Joe Saunders, this would be a front page scandal in the United Kingdom. But boxing, you've got a lot of people who just think they can do anything they want with no regard of the law and no fear of any consequences. And this is just an example of that. At this stage, there needs to be intervention. Now, I would like to say the British Boxing Board of Control should step in. But the truth is, they don't have no power. Power meaning money. While yes, Global have lots of it. They're making a sham, and a lot of them channels. You're making a sham of the sport. That's what you're doing. But we can't rely on the board to do anything. They're broke. They're relying on handouts. And I'll say no more than that. But Ben Davison, who has a trainer's license with the board, is lying.
There's a couple of places you saw the footage of Mark Tibbs saying what he said. Furthermore, if you go back, forget about Mark and forget about Ben. If you go to your DAZN app and you rewatch the fight, you're going to see Billy Joe Saunders shaking his head saying no right before the fight got stopped. Go back and watch that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can't clean that motherfucking shit up. That's how you know. That's how you know.